This program is brought to you by
Jaiz Bank, Nigeria's first full-fledged non-interest bank.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome you guys to another edition of your new program, the Ummah Tonight. Of course, brought to you by Jaiz Bank down in Nigeria. And please thank Jaiz Bank by, if you're down there in Abuja, by opening up an account for them with them, because they are the first full-fledged Islamic bank, no-interest bank in Nigeria. So we wish and hope success for them, inshallah. And thank you guys for sponsoring this program, and a special thank you to the president and the CEO of Jaiz Bank, Mr. Al-Hajj Mohammed bin Tube. We had a wonderful time when he visited us here in Cairo. Having said that, you guys, we have a lot of interesting news stories to get into you guys with. We have an exciting program. I don't want you to go anywhere. We have a special guest in the second segment, and we are going to discuss the great game, geopolitics, the future of Egypt in the Middle East, the Muslim world. Where is it going? Where is it now? How did we get here? Before we do that, I want to introduce my co-pilot, Brother Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Brother, thank you always for being here, flying a plane with me.
Sure, brother. Welcome.
We have a lot of news. The first news, I thought it was an interesting piece, and I'm really excited about it. Perhaps you can tell the viewers a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. At the beginning, inshallah, we're going to speak about the opening of a new Islamic council in Denmark, as well as we're having another piece of news about civil marriage invokes Lebanon upper.
Yes.
Also, we're having something about Israel, which is racist protests against Muslim football players.
Right, okay.
One nice news about verse 135 in chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, the woman, which is now a sign at Harvard University.
MashaAllah.
Also, we're having the last news, inshallah, which is about Kosovo schools ban hijab, and students from different backgrounds and ethnicities are against.
SubhanAllah. Well, that's interesting. We have, looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. Let's start with the first one, brother, which was, you said, a new Islamic center or council being opened in Denmark. Is that correct?
Yes, we're having a report about this. Inshallah, when the brothers prepare it, we will show it. It's about a new Islamic center or council is going to be launched during these days, inshallah, in Denmark. As we know, Denmark is a well-known country, and we have many propaganda about many things happened there, like the movie before the first movie.
Yes.
We heard about it.
Yes.
If we just to go back like maybe 4 or 5 years, we will hear about, you know, like Muslims get hurt from what they heard.
Who were the cartoons?
It was a cartoon movies which showed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, as a terrorist man, and they showed him with a bad way, which is against our belief and against what is known about him as a prophet. Also, in the same movie, they showed that Muslims are terrorists and the stuff like that. You know, this propaganda.
That was in Denmark.
Yeah, that was in Denmark, and it was one of the opening gates for people to criticize Islam, not with a nice way or with
to insult Islam.
Just it was just like I didn't like to say that, but that was the reality actually. I don't know if
they're ready for it, inshallah.
They're ready for it, so let's see it together, inshallah.
Let's check out that video, inshallah.
Islam is my strength way, leading me in this life, teaching me how to survive. How am I proud to say Islam is my strength way, leading me in this life, teaching me how to survive. Islam, Islam, Each night I pray for this world to stay forever calm and peaceful, filled with helpful people. Each night I pray for this world to stay forever calm and peaceful, filled with helpful people.
How am I proud to say Islam is my straight way, leading me in this life, teaching me how to survive. How am I proud to say Islam is my straight way, leading me in this life, teaching me how to survive. Islam, 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 Islam.
Islam is fair to human, where cruelty is forbidden, a religion of all creatures, the best of all features. Islam is fair to human, where cruelty is forbidden, a religion of all creatures, the best of all features.
SubhanAllah, was a beautiful video. I think we're going to launch the new caliphate from Birmingham or Copenhagen, not from Cairo or Riyadh. May Allah bless those brothers and give them success in that, and establishing, inshaAllah, Islam in that Islamic center in Denmark. Brother, that was a beautiful piece. What do you think?
It was a beautiful video and report. Bismillah, mashallah. The video shows many activities, and we hope to talk to one of the Islamic centers there, which is Dansk Islamisk Call. They say in Danish, or Islamic Council in Denmark.
Inshallah.
The Islamic Council in Denmark, as we saw in the report now, they have, Bismillah, mashallah, many activities. We see there is activities for women. We see that there were activities for families, as it was showed, sport, speeches, lectures.
Yeah,
Bismillah, mashallah. And this is real dawah. Real dawah or preaching about Islam is not about just saying Islam is. It's all about presenting the right Islam.
MashaAllah. And actually, we do have a special guest on the telephone. We have from that particular Islamic center, if I believe, Sheikh Abdul Wahid. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Thank you for joining us. Sheikh, we're very thankful for your time. And we certainly would we appreciate your valuable time. And we'd like to ask you, Sheikh, what is the status of this Islamic center? Are you involved with it? Is it in the process of being constructed, or is it already been built?
Well, it's under construction. There's it hasn't been finished yet. It's not exactly the group that I'm involved with, but some very close friends of mine who are doing this wonderful job.
Well, that's wonderful, Sheikh. I actually recall our last telephone call was on Ramadan's Pulse. I want to welcome you back. And perhaps briefly you can tell us about Islam in Denmark, how it is being received. Is there a peaceful coexistence and understanding between Muslim people, reverts like yourself, Muslim immigrants from overseas arriving there among the native Danish?
Yeah. Well, actually, as you know, historically speaking, Islam is very young in Denmark. It's only about 40 years ago that the first Muslim immigrants came from different places. So we're still talking historically about a very young religion in our country. But by the endless blessings of Allah, we have, I would say, very, very good ground for dawah here, and we have a constant flow of new people coming to Islam. At my own office, I see every year between 60 to 70 to 80 people taking Shahada.
That's amazing.
And alhamdulillah, that's a great blessing in itself, of course, to have this kind of opportunity. We have big umbrella organizations, and I'm myself the Foreign Relations Manager of what we call the Muslim Council of Denmark, which is the biggest umbrella organization in Denmark. And then we have, like, for instance, Danish Muslim Aid, doing charity work in nearly 20 countries around the world to present Islam in this way, and of course also seen from our own point to show that something else comes out of Denmark than what Denmark is mostly known for in the Muslim world.
SubhanAllah, Sheikh, would you say that the Muslims there are free, absolutely and entirely free to be Muslim and to practice Islam openly, freely, and publicly?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's amazing.
Absolutely, we have no restrictions from by law or by government or by anything. Of course, it can be in the private sector. Maybe some companies will not willingly employ Muslims, or maybe they will not allow headscarf or something. But by law, by legislation in Denmark, we enjoy all the same rights as anybody else, and we can, of course, conduct our Islam openly. There's no problem in that.
Well, that's amazing. That's certainly uplifting. We hope to see that kind of freedom here in the Middle East, Sheikh, as well. Sheikh Abdul Wahid from Denmark, I certainly appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing you next Ramadan, inshallah, for Ramadan's Paul Season 2.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much, Sheikh.
Thank
you, Sheikh, so much. Well, that's a nice phone call, very encouraging.
Mashallah.
Yeah, that was very encouraging to see Islam being establishing itself in
and
Denmark.
in a country that he was speaking about freedom of speech and constructions of laws, that they let them just practice Islam as well. And subhanAllah, that urged them to establish a new way of presenting Islam. They established a new Islamic council to present Islam well and with the right way.
And mashallah, I believe we have some footage on the screen now, some still images rather, of the Islamic Council there, the Muslims of Denmark. So it's nice, mashallah.
Mashallah.
So what else do we have, brother? Moving on from Denmark, as they're still looking at the center here, you can see the Sheikh there, I believe, giving a speech, or looks like an Islamic center, a makeshift Islamic center. Perhaps this was before they're building the full house, the full size Islamic center. May Allah bless them. And
Allah, as we see on the screen, they have libraries and also many activities like prayers. And this is not the basics or what Islam also only present, but also as we see there is prayers, we see lectures, we see many activities Islam present, and that's what we need in the West.
Of course, and in the Middle East as well, subhanAllah. So what about the second piece? Because now we went from Denmark, and now we're going to Lebanon.
So as far as you mentioned the Middle East, so we will go to Middle East. Civil marriage invokes Lebanon upper.
Now, what do we mean? Let's clarify civil marriage.
The news say the top Muslim religious authority in Lebanon, which is the Mufti, has issued a fatwa banning the legalization of civil marriage in the Arab countries amid a heightened debate about the practice. As it mentioned that the Mufti says every Muslim official, whether a deputy or a minister who supported the legalization of civil marriage, even if it is optional, is an apostate and outside the Islamic religion. That was by the Grand Mufti Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Qabbani.
Okay, go ahead. Because I believe I misunderstood this until you read it to me now. I believe this is a positive piece of news, because civil marriage, what we understand by civil marriage, meaning I can take anybody and marry anybody at any time without any male witnesses, without the Sharia Islamic procedures.
Yes.
So this is a good thing, from what I understand. I actually misread this piece. Thank you for clarifying that.
Here, for example, here in the Middle East, we have many culture and traditions, and some of it's applied with Islam, and the others are against the Islamic rules. But there is a lot of people, like they just would like to stick with their culture.
Right.
Which in what is, like what is applied with Islam and what is against. And this is what Islam came to clarify and correct.
Yes.
It came before marriage, before Islam, for example, that there were many types of marriage. There's marriage for some benefit. There's something was called shigar. Shigar is you marry my sister and I marry your sister as a condition. And Islam came to stop these kind of marriage types. In the same news, we see that there's a piece I'd like to say. The fatwa comes amid a heightened controversy about civil marriage in the tiny Arab country.
if I could get in, I'm sorry. You know, I have it written here, civil marriage invokes Lebanon uproar. That's what you read as well.
Yep.
So this, the fact though, if we can read this, the fact that invokes an uproar is actually sad, right?
Yep.
The fact that the Mufti say, no, we will apply Islamic marriage, and this invokes an uproar, this is actually something sad, which shows many people are against applying even Islamic laws with regarding marriage.
It needs more clarifying about this, because we were, you know, 2 episodes or 1 episode before, we were speaking about uniting the fatwa in Asia.
Right.
Fatwa is something stick, or you just put it on the hands of the Mufti or the one who is responsible for that.
Right.
And you just go with this fatwa, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not, if you don't know more about Islamic rules, it's not your mistake at front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's now at front of this Mufti and in his shoulders.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent, subhanAllah. May Allah help them in Lebanon. Because when I think of Lebanon, I just think of music and dancers and all these terrible things. May Allah help them get on the straight path.
And also you can think about many, bismillah, mashallah, Islamic da'iyah from Lebanon. They are in the West, and even in here in the East, yani, mashallah, we have here in Azhar University, we have many scholars from Lebanon. Also, we have, when I was in US and Canada, I have, you know, like met with a lot of Lebanese da'iyah and sheikhs, mashallah.
Yes, there's like a contradiction, subhanAllah. All right, we have another piece of news that I think, brother, is subhanAllah, it's a strong piece. Let's go to it.
Israel, which is all about Israel.
Yes.
So here in many news pages, we see that Israel racist protests against Muslim football players.
Right. Okay.
The lead of the news say Knesset Speaker Reuven Rivlin Likud castigated fans of the soccer club he supports.
Right, which is a political party, a conservative racist party called Likud. So these guys are basically insulting, they went to a football match, I believe, brother, and they were insulting players on what basis?
Muslim players
on what basis?
In specifics.
For what basis? Just because they're Muslim?
Just because they're Muslims. And in the news also, we see that some of them, they are from the West, and they started after that just to say there is, you know, like difference between Muslims in the West and in the East, and we don't just only criticize we don't criticize the Western people. We need to know more.
And you see it now here, right?
Yeah, I see it on the screen.
And you see this bigot complaining about, you know, all this, they are punishing the Muslims for the
Holocaust.
Holocaust.
There is a subtitle, so
they're going to punish the Muslims for the Holocaust until the day everybody dies. And did we commit the Holocaust? We didn't commit the Holocaust. But they always pressure Muslims and oppress Muslims and target Muslims. Why? Why don't they take this hatred out? I mean, I hate to say it, but we weren't involved in World War II.
Back to history, we discovered recently that Holocaust in some sources are not reality.
Right.
And
well, then they'll never let you investigate it either.
Yep, they will not.
Let's get the real figures. Let's just look at the figures.
Because it's a big gate for whining.
Yeah, right.
So whiners just would like to say every time you just insult or say whatever about them, they go back to Holocaust. We were oppressed. We were, and we were, and we were, and so if you were oppressed, it's not my mistake to be oppressed nowadays.
I'm not involved in that.
Yeah.
This is a Christian European problem. We didn't create this problem, so please leave us alone. That's what we want to say here. And really, I wish this news, I'm happy that the brother Muhammad Tayyab picked this news piece, because we want to show the world on Ummah tonight, we want to show the media, people all around the world, that what's happening, this kind of outright racism and discrimination.
Yeah, mashallah. Do we need to clarify anything?
I think that's it. We go to the next piece. May Allah help them over there.
Yep. So next piece is inshallah about civil marriage. We spoke about it, so we will go to University of Harvard.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
What happens
so in University of Harvard, there is a verse from Quran. Subhanallah, it was now assigned at the College of Law.
MashaAllah.
And the verse is from Surah Al-Nisa. Which is the translation of it, women, surah or chapter number 4, the verse number 135, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse say, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. Back to the translation of this verse, we will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice.
Inshallah.
See what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to say. Witness for Allah even if it be against yourselves.
Yes,
so it's not only about others, but in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indicating it's going to be in your side, or parents or relatives, whether one is rich or poor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more worthy of both. So follow not personal inclinations, lest you not be just. And if you distort your testimony or refuse to give it, then indeed Allah is ever with what you do acquainted.
Yeah, thank you for that beautiful recitation, by the way. Yeah,
thank
very
you.
nice. Well, and yeah, although we're not waiting for Harvard to do that, but it's an amazing token of appreciation. It's a beautiful thing, and we hope it opens the door for more of this in America. Recognition of Islam,
yes.
you know, yeah.
And mashallah, this is a well-known and very prestigious university. Harvard University is well-known, and many people, they just would like to have a small certificate of it.
Yeah, of course.
One of the really important colleges there, or faculty, which is Faculty of Law, when they put a verse was mentioned that in the Quran that really indicate that rules of the Quran is suitable with everything.
Everyone.
Yeah, yes. And everyone.
And they begin to recognize the beauty of Islam, subhanAllah. Thank you. But you know, let's go to our next piece, brother, which was Kosovo. You mentioned we actually have a phone call. Sister Khala Bilani. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure and honor to be on Huda again.
Thank you so much, sister. You know, we were talking about, inshallah, now, or we would like to speak about, rather, we saw recently in the news a ban on schoolgirls wearing the hijab or headscarf in public schools in Kosovo. From your perspective as a psychologist, perhaps you can speak a little bit about why the psychological impact of forcing a young Muslim girl to remove her hijab.
Sure. First, let me explain that to be psychologically healthy, there needs to be congruency between beliefs and actions, which basically means doing what you know is right. So forcing the removal of the hijab will cause incongruency, which will lead to stress, perpetual guilt, and may even lead to depression and or anxiety.
SubhanAllah, that says a lot. So why do we see, it appears to me that the hijab is constantly under attack throughout the world. Why do governments or school administrators and officials, why do they focus on women removing their hijab? What is the signal? Why this? Why not another piece of adornment or something? Why do they focus? Why is the hijab so important to the psyche of a Muslim woman?
Why are they focusing on removing it? Is that your question?
Yes, because we constantly hear in the news, Lebanon, there's no hijab in the school. Kosovo, no hijab. All these countries, they constantly focus on the hijab. Why do you think that?
Well, since they don't understand the fundamental reasons for wearing the hijab, which is liberation from being seen as an object, freedom from the shackles of society, and one of my favorite is equality between the sexes, which usually shocks the non-Muslims when I share this. And the reason it creates equality is because you are respected for your thoughts, your beliefs, and your knowledge, and not just seen as an object. And because they don't understand the essence of wearing the hijab, they project their own misconception that the hijab is used as a way to control and oppress women. So they, in their own way, they think that they are helping and liberating the women.
Okay, excellent. I definitely see your perspective. In your opinion, from a psychological standpoint, who is under more pressure walking down the street in any capital in a Western country, the Muslim woman or the Muslim man?
You see, a Muslim woman's attire automatically classifies her as a Muslim. So while a Muslim man, could blend into society, a Muslim woman is recognized immediately for wearing the hijab. And if a woman has basically low self-esteem, and if she's insecure, she may experience more psychological pressure because she will not get like the external validation that she needs so much. Excellent
point. Sister Hala, also one final question for you. We see for some reason that we actually see the hijab ban more prevalent, more common in the Muslim world than in the Western world, where we saw recently World Hijab Day in America, where non-Muslim women wore the hijab for a day. So why is that? Why do you think that perhaps there's more freedom, actually, generally speaking, to wear the hijab in the United States, perhaps in Canada, than there is here in the Middle East?
I think the individual freedom of expressing yourself and having the right to practice your religion is something that is not only admired, but it's something that is a must. And you find that people are very open to it in the West. And I'm seeing actually a growing number of people wearing the hijab in the Middle East, and it's always encouraging. I think there is a spiritual and Islamic revival with the youth, especially. And whether the youth in the West or in the East, there is definitely a revival, and you're seeing many more people embracing it and wearing it with pride and happiness, mashallah.
Yeah, that is amazing. I see that as well. I would like to ask you one more question, sister. We see in France, they're very tough against the hijab. They ban it in schools. They're really adamant against banning the hijab. They say it's a threat to the identity of France. But this appears to be massively hypocritical, considering that France promotes ideas and ideologies like freedom, democracy, the Republic, the French Revolution. So having said that, why do they allow freedom in almost every aspect of life, but they would ban the hijab so strongly?
So you're asking, why is it that they promote democracy, however they do not allow the wearing of the hijab? Is that correct?
You know, actually, I can narrow down the question. Why in France, who claims to be a country, a nation of freedom, of democratic values, why, and they say the hijab is a threat, they say it's a threat to the French identity. Is there any psychological proof for that? Or why would they say the hijab is a threat to our national identity?
Right. Again, it's a misconception. They are just projecting their own misconception about the hijab as a way of oppressing women. And if they realize, and I think if they realize what it really stood for, and that's where the responsibility of every Muslim woman comes into play, that each one of us needs to be educating our non-Muslim neighbors, our co-workers, anyone that we come in contact with, and we need to be contributing to society by being involved, educating, and being proactive. Basically, we need to be creating a positive association to the hijab, because if they see more and more Muslim women, educated Muslim successful women contributing and having a positive impact on society, then there's no way that they will not get the message and understand what the hijab stands for. It's just a lack of education and a lack of understanding. So all of us Muslim women, we need to just get motivated and get out there and present Islam in the most positive way possible.
I couldn't agree with you more. Educate ourselves and educate others. Thank you so much, Sister Hala Banani, speaking about the psychological perspective of the hijab. Thank you for your time, sister. I appreciate it. Brother, what do you think? The hijab ban in Kosovo, what are your thoughts on that? What is
as Sister was speaking now, it's hijab in Islam is a code of dress, and it represents an identity of the woman herself. She would like to be with this way at front of anyone.
Right,
it's not an oppression, and it's not something against her thoughts. Hijab, as it was mentioned in the Quran, is something obligatory, and as far as the woman in the West or the Muslim woman believes in Quran, she would like just to go through these verses and apply it on herself.
Yeah,
so what's your problem at another country or another government against my thoughts? I'd like to be at front of anyone with this way. We saw in the report in Kosovo that the girl, she would like to be with this way, and she fought for this. Her mom came to say that that is her decision. Her father came to say that, and her brothers, colleagues and classmates, they were against this, and they demonstrated or protest against this decision. They say we are with her decision.
Yeah, her decision. That's the point. Yeah. Barakallahu, thank you, Akhi. I think I look forward to seeing you next episode. I think we have some good news for next episode. Nice program. We're talking about a mosque in Athens, Greece. And we'll be talking about that one next time, I think. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys at home, stay tuned. We have another segment coming up with an interesting guest. We're going to be talking about geopolitics, the future of Egypt and the Middle East. How did we get here? What happened in the last couple of years since the Arab Spring and before? You don't want to go anywhere, so stay tuned to the Ummah Tonight.
In a game of golf, both the caddy and the golfer have the same goal, to get the ball into the hole. Interest-free banking is similar. With a clear view of the fairway, a predefined agreement without shifting targets, things should end up where you want them. Your deposits are safe, and your funds are ethically managed with a transparent and equitable approach to sharing risk and reward. No interest burden means more time to relax without the worry of nasty surprises. Rest assured, our interest is mutual. Jaiz Bank, Nigeria's first full-fledged non-interest bank.
I've been asked today to talk about the Quran and the modern world.
The religion that is acceptable to Almighty Creator is Islam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
The more you know about him, the more you realize how you want to be like him.
For every messenger, a prophet that Allah has sent, Allah gave him one dua.
Allah sent prophets after prophet, messenger after messenger to remind everyone, don't deny the Creator.
La ilaha illallah.
Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Thee alone we worship, and Thee alone we seek help.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Never on this planet walked such a person as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, you guys, to the Ummah Tonight. As I promised, we have a very interesting guest, a young man, a political analyst and a political scientist, a graduate from the AUC where he holds an MA in political science. We're going to be talking about the geopolitical situation here in the Middle East, how we got here, what brought us here, where we are going, inshallah, as well. I'm very happy to have you, brother Mustafa Salam. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Brother, we have a lot of wonderful things to talk about. I'm very excited about this program, this episode, rather. How did we get here? Perhaps before we talk about what's going on now in Egypt, in the Middle East, and what's going to happen in the future, inshallah, or what your analysis is for the future, let's take us back to the January 25th, a couple years back when the revolution began, and give us briefly, a little bit, and the viewers, myself, everyone, educate us a little bit about the things that got us here, inshallah. Go ahead, brother.
Just a quick thing before we go ahead. Just about the Holocaust, I kind of found it to be a little bit insensitive, what was said before I come, because the Holocaust is a reality, and we do have people who have family.
I didn't say it was not a reality.
Yeah,
it's a reality,
of course. But we do have even supporters of Palestine whose families have actually suffered from the Holocaust.
I didn't say there wasn't suffering.
Yeah. So just getting that out of the way.
Barakallahu feek, thank you. Go ahead.
With regards to Egypt before the revolution, basically, we could say that Egypt was greatly suffering. It was basically an oppressive regime.
Okay, before 25th of January.
An authoritarian regime. The standards of living were very poor.
Right.
Egypt, yes, did not really have democracy.
At all.
At all.
Right.
Pretty much. It was just basically, you could say, just a propaganda. They, of course,
right. They held elections, but it was fake.
It was fake. Right. It was rigged.
Right.
And what kind of allowed that system to go
right.
Was the role it played in the Middle East, supporting great powers' interests in the region.
Be specific, brother. If you like, you don't have to.
Well, you could obviously say that Mubarak was a very strong propellant of American foreign policy in the region, and basically going on with the interests of America.
And in return for that, he was able to control the country with the green light, we can say, of...
You could say so. He had the support, the legitimacy, if you say,
yes, yeah, good
of the international community. And then, obviously, things were not going well for Mubarak at the end of his years.
How many years towards the end? Because I hear people say different things. The last 5 years, the last 10 years, towards the end, people were getting fed up. People were, they have had enough, the Egyptian people.
Well, you could say that from the 2005-2006 parliament,
yes,
with the Muslim Brotherhood gaining 88 seats of the parliament.
Okay, right.
And to an extent, the blogger community started blogging about political abuse.
Right.
We started having worker movements.
Okay. Yes, the Kifaya movement.
Kifaya movement, of course, were one of the main.
Brother, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have a phone call from a special guest. I want you to hold this thought.
All right.
2005, 2006 Egyptian Parliament. We'll come right back to it because we do have a special guest, mashallah, calling us, I believe, all the way from France. Abdullah Irini. Assalamu alaikum, brother Abdullah. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very fine, alhamdulillah.
Brother, thank you for your time. I certainly appreciate you joining me, Brother Mustafa Salama from the AUC.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Brother Abdullah, please give us your thoughts on the future of the Middle East. Do you see a positive outcome for the Arab Spring, an outcome that will create stability, prosperity, and Islamic rule? And I know that's a big term. What does that mean even? But please give us your thoughts.
Well, I think no one can actually tell anything about the future. I mean, no one can guess what is actually going to be in the next year. But generally speaking, I think there is a kind of battle between the secular movements and the Islamist movements. And I think the actual trend obviously shows that the Islamic parties, or the Islamic, how can I say, the Islamic political movement is obviously taking over. But in the same time, there is a big challenge because obviously we're not naive. We all know that most of the Islamic movements, like especially the Muslim Brotherhood and so on, they don't really believe in democracy, but they accepted to play the game. And so I don't know. We all know that they all want the caliphate and they want to, but I mean they want to impose it their way, or they're trying to do it smoothly. In the same time, obviously, you know, the United States, the European Union, they're trying hard to prevent the Islamic project to become a reality in the area. So I don't know. I'm kind of, you know, scattered. I don't really know what's going on. I think no one can really tell what's going on in the next few years.
Yeah, but I guess, brother, we can ask for you if you can make dua for us here in Egypt and the Middle East, all around the world. We certainly appreciate your thoughts all the way from France. May Allah help you in France as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Brother Abdullah Irini. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Interesting phone call from a brother from France, mashallah. Brother Mustafa, 2005, 2006, you said at this time things starting to stir up. Go ahead.
Basically, like human rights violations were at that time starting to be recorded, and people are seeing them pictures and videos online. And actually, the violations and the
electrocutions, the torture,
even all of these things have, like, people started to see, like, hey, these guys are not even like politically active. That could be me. And with Khalid Saeed, the guy, the young man who was killed in Alexandria.
This was recently in 2000
That was in 2010.
Yeah, beaten to death by the police, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that was just like, that's a young guy. That could be me. And he like he's not politically active. There's not a specific, he does not have a specific agenda against the government.
Right.
And he was just killed.
So, this is the beginning of the end.
That made a huge Facebook group.
Right, and this kicked it going. Okay.
Exactly. And when we look back at the workers' movements, Kifaya movements,
yes,
bloggers,
yes,
those were the guys that you could say that sparked.
Yeah, they started kicking up dust, and it was
and
getting
with
going.
Tunisia, what happened with Tunisia?
This was the final spark to get it going. Brother, I'm not meaning to rush you, but you have a lot of interesting things to say, and we have a short time. So I want to get to the next point. Boom, January 25th comes, the pot, boom, explodes. Talk about it.
After the, like now that...
During the days of the revolution.
During the days of the revolution, of course, no one really expected that was going to be a revolution at the time.
Right.
Even political analysts abroad, even the government saying, the foreign minister at the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time was saying, Egypt is not like Tunisia, and everything is settled.
Wishful thinking.
Even political analysts abroad and in the West did not expect that the regime
would fall. Yeah.
And it fell so quickly and so easily.
SubhanAllah.
Like we could say that what happened is that, okay, Mubarak fell, but still the regime is still intact.
Okay, now we're going, now you're going. This is getting more interesting. Mubarak fell, but the regime is still intact. So what parts of the regime are still intact, and what role are they playing now?
Well, if you want to like basically classify the regime or like
describe
it, you could say at its core was like the authoritarian president.
Right.
That has his presidency, the sort of like the institution of the presidency, the main figures around him, his family, his sons.
Right. His wife even.
His wife even. And then underneath them, what carries the bulk of the regime, what we would call crony capitalism, is people who benefited from the regime economically, in return for loyalty to the regime.
Right. And some of them are very well known.
Some of them are very well known, of course.
Right.
And many of these guys who were...
Can we say one is in Abu Dhabi now?
We could definitely say...
Okay. This category of people, crony capitalists, I like this word, this term.
So we could say that these guys, or crony capitalists, were also in the legislative branch. So they're usually businessmen, but also as a form of prestige, they would also be in the parliament.
Right.
In the National Democratic Party.
Okay.
And you could say that this group, in support with the security apparatus, which protected the interests of these crony capitalists, in return of also for some resources, and not abiding by law.
And security apparatus, you mean?
In the Ministry of Interior, Intelligence,
right.
You name it.
And what did they get in return? You said perhaps not money itself, but what benefits?
Benefits, land, apartment buildings offered by the government, resorts.
Right, things for cheap, property for cheap, apartments for cheap.
Exactly,
right,
exactly.
Okay. So now the security apparatus, these crony capitalists who are very influential, big businessmen, who took the money of the people. All these people now, they're still here. They're still in place, aren't they?
They are still in place. Of course, some of them are in prison right now, but the vast majority of people, some of them did engage in human rights violations, but we also should be objective and say that some of them just had to
orders.
Sort of not follow orders, but had to keep their head down, sort of like to, if they wanted their business to stay running.
Right.
And many of these guys were actually smart and
cover their tracks,
not like cover their tracks. I mean, they're smart as in they could invest huge amounts of money and run them in an economic and efficient way.
Okay.
And so they would be invited by the NDP to join.
Okay.
And if they refuse, it usually is that they would have problems with their businesses, or
in the future.
In the near future, they would not have their businesses. So what would happen? What would have to happen in Egypt? And like these guys, who run pretty much the bulk of the Egyptian economy,
right,
are resisting this change. And you see all these riots and so forth.
Right.
And these guys are putting money in these things. They also own
channels,
TV channels,
to perpetuate this, to kick up this dust.
But these guys are really afraid. They're really afraid that
of being exposed or what?
Of being exposed, of losing
their wealth,
of losing their wealth, of losing their they have already lost their position and status in society. These guys would go anywhere without the police asking them.
Right. Do whatever they want. Right.
Exactly. They had a free
hand.
Exactly.
So, brother, what can we say now? We have a democratically elected president who sits atop a security force that does not obey him, a judiciary does not follow his orders, capital cronies, like you say, controlling the economy, and they are against him. You didn't mention the army. They've seemed to fall in the line a bit.
The army more or less has...
perhaps with the true patriots in the end.
The army more or less has fallen under democratic
perhaps the only
rule.
That's great. Okay.
And it was kind of unexpected what happened with the sacking of the heads of
the general
of SCAF, and this kind of saved us, you could say, 10 years or so.
Okay, right. Go ahead, brother.
And but the rest of the institutions, you see, the institutions of Egypt were not really functioning institutions. They're not really functioning democratic institutions that have a sort of a hierarchy and job descriptions for each employees in these institutions. These institutions were basically run on a network of mutual interests.
Right.
So say I'm a member of parliament, and I'm very close to the regime, the president or his friends.
I pass his laws for me, he gives me business. So it's
say I would have in my electoral district, someone would come to me and say, hey, I want to work.
Right.
So you would send him as a driver for something in the ministry of whatever.
The whole country is operating like this, basically.
So exactly. So when you want to run the country, change that, it's not really like the guy who's employed and the deputy head of some ministry was not employed because he's qualified for that. No, he was employed
because he was a friend of a friend.
A friend of a friend or loyal to someone.
Yeah.
So, and when you remove these guys and put new guys in, there's not really a system that operates these institutions. So even if you wanted them to work, it still would be...
It's not working correctly.
It's not working correctly, and it would take time for it to actually lay the things down and make them work.
Okay, brother, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We do have a phone call. We engineer Asuni all the way from Palestine. Assalamu alaikum, engineer. How are you? Engineer Osama Azuni, thank you so much, brother Engineer Osama. I appreciate your phone call. Perhaps you can speak to us briefly about the situation in the Middle East. Do you have hope for the Middle East, Palestine, Egypt, the Muslim world in general, after the Arab Spring?
Yeah. Actually, let us talk about Egypt now because it is very hot news. In fact, I'm very optimistic for Egypt.
Go ahead.
Egypt is a very old civilization. The people are civilized people. And what's happening now in Egypt, for me, it is very natural. It is logic, what happened now. Some people think it is, superficial thinking that after the revolution, by one day, everything will be okay. Even the economy, even everything. And this is, of course, is not the truth. So what is going on now, for me, it's very natural. And this is a stage Egypt is passing on. And remember that Egypt was controlled by, other power, easy controlled. Now, this power don't want to leave it easy. It is kind of delivery, like a pain of delivery for a new nation now. So I trust the Egyptians. I trust the wise people in Egypt. And, I have a lot of friends in Egypt, and I have a lot of contact with them. And I know that even the Christian of Egypt, Copts, they have some wise people who I hear them by myself said, these troubles happen. Open the door for conversation with the Muslims, and
course.
we discovered that we were afraid from some things not existing.
Yeah, it's
easy. It's easy for us now to deal with the Salafi, with Ikhwan, with everybody.
Yes,
so
of course,
what happened? I can find it. I can find the positive part of it, and I'm telling everybody love Egypt. The future, inshallah, Rabbil Alameen, is very good for Egypt. It's
Inshallah.
very bright.
Engineer Osama, thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Engineer Osama. Although we have to end the program, we only have a couple minutes left. Thank you so much. I agree with you. The future should be bright. We hope, inshallah. Brother Mustafa, we just have a minute left.
I just have a minute left.
Go ahead.
So basically, if we want things to have like a democratic or sort of like a free transition of Egypt, we have to reconcile all the powers that are on the ground.
Is it possible?
I think it's possible. It has to be a process. It has to be a transparent process where it's basically a national dialogue between all the powers on the ground. We have to recognize that there are powers and they have an invested interest.
Who are the powers? Briefly.
Like
the big players.
Islamists, of course.
Okay.
They're the new rising power. Remnants of the old regime, there has to be some sort of dialogue with them.
Right.
And of course you have the secular parties, which are sort of like a cover for what's happening. For
a cover for the crony capitalists who pay them to
Exactly, because they have they don't have the ability to mobilize like
the other groups.
Like Islamists. And if they did, they would have done much better in the previous parliament.
Yes.
So that's how it should go. Inshallah, when Egypt settles down and there's some sort of growth and economic benefit in Egypt, that would give Egypt a much more stronger leverage in the region. And if we had more time, I would have spoken about that.
But I'm sorry, I wish we did have more time. I do want to bring you back so we can complete this, because this is a topic that's not going away.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Brother Mustafa Salama from the AUC. Thank you for your time, brother. I certainly appreciate it. You guys at home, I certainly hope you enjoyed that segment there. We certainly hope to bring Brother Mustafa back to talk about, to get into more detail about what is going to happen here, what is happening rather in the heart of the Islamic world right here in the Arab Middle East. You guys stay tuned next time for another episode of the Ummah Tonight, inshallah. So until then, I leave you in the care of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.